On Netflix Instant right now, there's a documentary called The Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, which is a ridiculously long title, but it's a very good movie. It's a movie about the making of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which came out in the 90s, and if you've seen it, you know what a big pile of shit it is. And this movie kind of shows you how a thing like that can happen. This is what happens when you have a director with an ambitious vision and a big budget. If you have seen The Death of Superman Lives, they talk about Tim Burton wanting all of these crazy ideas, like a little robot friend that Superman has, and all these aliens that are going to appear in the movie of Superman Lives. Or if you look at Jodorowsky's Dune, they talk about all of the incredible ideas that are going to appear in this movie. In the cases of those two movies, they never were. And that's probably what should have happened with The Island of Dr. Moreau. They finished it because it was economically viable. At the point they had invested so much into it, they took a gamble and decided, let's finish it. Let's get some of that money back. You know, there's some really great interviews with the original director, Richard Stanley, who's an interesting character in himself. He directed Hardware and Dust Devil and had a very unique vision, and suddenly he was given a big budget and an opportunity to work on his passion project, The Island of Dr. Moreau, which he'd been agonizing over for years, trying to come up with a perfect kind of script. And it's tragic that so many things went wrong with the making of this movie. There's some great reveals of what it was like working with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. This was around the time of Kilmer's height. He had finished up Batman Forever, and there were stories circulating around Hollywood about what a pain in the ass he was, but he was still a box office draw. I feel like he got hit with a bit of karma because everything was downhill after this. He had a few good years. He had a couple little movies, you know, like Mindhunter in 2000 or whatever. But then he started doing TV cameos, video game voices, and he was in Twixt. You would think Twixt would be a good movie since it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola, but you know, to be fair, I only gave it about 15 minutes because the video quality of it just looks like a direct-to-VHS horror movie sequel that you would have rented at a Blockbuster video in 2002. And if you've seen Twixt, you know how sad and bloated Val Kilmer looked. I think it kind of destroyed him. That he got so arrogant, he got so egotistical, and then all of his pride fell before him. Brando had also become very notorious to work with, and there's a great story in this about how he wanted to shut down production in the middle of the shooting and rewrite the script because the script was a mess. And he wanted to put his own ideas in and rewrite, you know, the script, injecting his ideas, which most of which were crazy. And one of them was so crazy, it was the funniest thing I've heard in a very long time. You know, and for that moment alone, I'd recommend this movie. And this movie is very similar to Jodorowsky's Dune. That's a movie that never was, but it had a lot of ambitious ideas. And when you look at the way The Island of Dr. Moreau started, it was brilliant. There were a lot of really good ideas. And then you ran into issues with working with the actors, working with the set. The director started to lose faith in himself, and everything just fell apart and turned into this mediocre piece of crap. I mean, the director, he was taken off of it eventually, and they replaced him with a different person. This documentary is also similar in vein. This is like The Death of Superman Lives, which is another movie that never was. Had a lot of really ambitious ideas. But the studio decided, you know, it was too risky to put that big of a budget in. But the way this documentary handles the matters is much better. It's much more efficient. You don't have the director of this documentary injecting himself into the shot. And and into the questioning and things like that. You know, the story isn't about the director's journey to discover what happened. That was my big issue with The Death of Superman Lives. You know, it was all about the director. And he's going on this journey to find out what really happened to Superman Lives, you know. And he's got to be in every shot. And I think he's just kind of an asshole. But this is a very good documentary. And again, very fascinating to hear how crazy Hollywood is. And the kinds of mistakes they make. And how shit falls apart. And while Jodorowsky's Dune and Superman Lives never happened, this movie happened. And it happened in a bad way. So check it out on Netflix Instant. It is well worth your time.